there we go.
If I give you $4, can I still get pizza?
Thursday, May 4th. You're not in my group.
I know, that's why I asked.
So, no? What a weird way to start.
Let's do it.
As Gavin brings up, tomorrow is your day of service. If you still owe money to a teacher for food, you might want to do it. If you did not pay, bring your lunch tomorrow. There is no food here for you. I mean, technically, worst case scenario, you could come by my room and spend 5 points to get a snack, but I don't think a little bag of goldfish is going to keep you going throughout the day. But we get to live by our choices sometimes. Tomorrow's plan, from what I understand, you will go to first period for about 5 minutes, not for class, just for attendance and have things explained. Then everybody in the school is going to head down to a meeting. We're going to be down there for like an hour to find out what day of service is. They have a guest speaker, and we get to sort of find out about making the world a better place. Then you leave meeting, and you go to wherever you're going to be with your groups. And you go to that group for like the next 4 hours. That's when you're going to have lunch. That's when you're going to do whatever your activities are. End of that time, you go back to another meeting where they're going to recap everything that was done. I believe they have like a video they are creating of everybody who is doing work, because they're going to go around and take pictures. And then after that meeting, you go back to your group for a half hour for the end of the day where you get to like talk and hang out. For most of you, depending on the teachers you have, it should be a pretty low-key day. For the teachers who have been here for the previous ones, it's not like a high-stress yelling at kids day unless you do a thing to get in trouble. On that, it's a pretty easy, we try to hang out, have fun, relax during the day, and make the world a better place. Like I know in my group, we're going to be watching movies. If you have headphones and you want to bring headphones, I recommend it. For a lot of the groups, there's every chance you can listen to music while you're working. If you're out painting or out mulching and you put on headphones, there's every chance they're fine with that. If you are working in like the groups that are doing things, like for me, we're painting rocks, I don't care if you're listening to headphones while you're painting rocks, so I would recommend things like that. Worst case scenario, the teacher's like, no, I'm a big grump, and they send them back to your locker. But if you have them, then hopefully it makes life a little bit easier for you. But other than that, it should, in theory, be a pretty easy, fun day for most of you. Then, let's see, today's Star Wars Day, and my shirt is connected to the scene we're going to talk about today. I am wearing my little Star Wars buttons, though, so I still respect Star Warsy days. And then from there, Monday's test. I am well aware many of you have not read, so here's what I can tell you. As long as you have been in class and paying attention, you should at least be able to get like a C- area. Because it's hard for me not to cover a lot of the book. So if you've been paying attention and you can answer some of the questions that I ask out loud, there's every chance you should be able to get a C- even if you did not read. If you take time to think and paid attention. If you've read the book, it'd be hard for you not to get a B+ to A- or higher from there, because I tried to aim it. I've seen the movie, I write my own tests, so I know how to aim it. I tried being nice to you guys on this recent quiz, and I tried to make it an easy one for you, because I was trying to bump you guys up in sort of like the middle as we went through the book. Monday's test, I don't try to be as nice. On Monday's test, I figure if you've not read, then you suffer the consequences. If you've been here, but not paying attention whatsoever, I assume you don't care anyway, so don't worry about your grade. If you cared about your grade, you would have read or paid attention. So for the rest of you, my goal is that you should do all right. Hi, Callan.
Is this going to be the final?
No. So for here, one, we have test on Monday. Then we still have 2 more quizzes coming up, because we still have a really short book we're going to read, which takes us like all of 2 weeks to go through. It's the sequel to Outsiders. So we're going to have a quiz over this and then a test over this. That's also not your final. You have already done your final for me.
Yeah, it's the speech.
It was the speech. So you don't have to worry about giving that again. I've already done it. It'll go back on your grade. If you want to redo it, you can redo it, and that is fine with me. If you see how it impacts your grade and you're like, hey, I can do better, I'm happy with it. If you go, I never want to give a speech again, I completely understand. It was the speech you gave where you had to tell a story that connected to your life, where you had to retell a fable. It was like the 1 minute to 2 minute speech. That was the one that we are going to be putting on there. So that becomes your final exam. I just give it to you earlier in the 9 weeks because I figure it makes your life easier. And as much as I harass you, I don't hate you as much as some of you think. All right. For yesterday, I don't want to double up too much. I want to make sure I cover things to help you guys understand in the book. So we got Rumbly this. Did we talk about who's in picture?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got to. Did we get to why they picked Dairy?
Yes.
Big and big.
Big and strong to
So they
scare
get
off everyone
scared.
else. Yes. Then who shows up late?
Yeah.
Dally.
That was
Didn't
Dally.
like fight without me.
There you go. Nice, good quoting. And then who normally helps Ponyboy fight? Oh, I forgot, because then we talked about Biggie Ogle who had the elbows up. I'm like, that's ridiculous. All right, now I remember it's coming back to me. Let me get to
Yeah.
because Biggie Ogle doesn't know how paralyzing works. It's okay. We're trying not to judge. Then, do we get to Ponyboy going to the hospital?
Yeah.
All right. So him going to the hospital. We talk about the Brumley boys, how they beat up one of their own.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. You guys got my other
We
class
did.
grades.
Being a wood.
For those kids who paid attention, apparently. Then, so we got to my shirt. Ooh, did we talk about staying gold?
Yeah.
Okay. So I figured we'd get to roughly this area so we can
Oh,
get to the
I
shirt.
know why.
Oh
Okay.
wait, yeah.
Because it says gold. Gold things never stay. I mean, gold things don't stay gold forever.
Because what's it referring back to?
Oh.
The poem.
The poem. Nicely done.
Things
So-
stay gold forever. You gotta.
Did we read the scene with Johnny dying?
No.
Alright. Let me read that scene real quick. Because that's what's going to go into the shirt, which becomes a part that comes up at the end. If you have not read book, then this is the last scene with Johnny in it. This is right after we have... There we go. Right after we have the big rumble, and then they take off from there, and they get to the hospital. So I'm just going to read this last scene with Johnny, because he's going to bring up the whole stay gold thing. We, meaning Dally and Ponyboy, we ran through the lobby and crowded past people into the elevator. Several people yelled at us, I think because we were pretty racked up looking, but Dally had nothing on his mind except Johnny, and I was too mixed up to know anything that I had to follow Dally. When we finally got to Johnny's room, the doctor stopped us. I'm sorry, boys, but he's dying. We gotta see him, Dally said, and flicked out Two-Bit's switchblade. His voice was shaking. We're gonna see him, and if you give me any static, you're gonna end up on your own operating table. The doctor didn't even bat an eye. Yeah, you can see him, but it's because you're his friends, not because of some knife. Dally looked at him for a second, then put the knife back in his pocket. We both went into Johnny's room, standing there for a second, getting our breath back in heavy gulps. It was awful quiet. It was scary quiet. I looked at Johnny. He was very still, and for a moment, I thought in agony, he's dead already. We're too late. Dally swallowed, wiping the sweat off his upper lip. Hey, Johnny Cake? Hey, Johnny? Johnny stirred weakly, opened his eyes. Hey. We won. We beat the Socias. We stomped them, chased them out of our territory. Johnny didn't even try to grin. Useless. Fighting's no good. He was awful white now. Dally licked his lips nervously. Hey, they're still writing editorials about you in the paper for being a hero and all? He was talking too fast and too calmly. Yeah, they're calling you a hero now and heroizing all the greasers, and we're all proud of you, buddy. Johnny's eyes glowed. Dally was proud of him. That was all Johnny'd ever wanted. Ponyboy. I barely heard him. I came closer and leaned over to hear what he was going to say. Stay gold, Ponyboy. Stay gold. The pillow seemed to sink a little, and Johnny died. Now, you read about people looking peacefully asleep when they're dead, but they don't. Johnny just looked dead, like a candle with the flame gone. I tried to say something, but I couldn't make a sound. Dally swallowed and reached over to push Johnny's hair back. Never could keep that hair back. That's what you get for trying to help people, you little punk. That's what you get. Whirling suddenly, he slammed back against the wall. His face contracted in agony. Sweat streamed down his face. Damn it, Johnny, he begged, slamming one fist against the wall, hammering it to make it obey his will. Damn it, Johnny, don't die. Please don't die. And he suddenly bolted through the door and down the hall. So when he's referring to Stay Gold, not with him referring to Ponyboy, but in the poem, what does gold mean? The things that bring you goodness, happiness, the things that give you a reason to live. The question that most kids missed on Monday's quiz was I said, what is Dally's gold? What is the thing that keeps Dally going that makes him happy?
Johnny. Children.
Johnny. And so for him, Johnny is the thing that keeps him happy and going. When Johnny says to Ponyboy, stay gold, what's he telling Pony to do?
Snore like
Not bad, Gavin. Stay good. Stay happy. Don't give in to being angry and bitter. Keep finding the things in your life that are going to make you happy in some way. What was Dally's gold?
Johnny.
What happened to Dally's gold?
die.
So here's where now we're going to have an issue because Dally didn't have much keeping it together. And all of a sudden, the one thing that he had to live for died. And when the one thing you have to live for dies,
You die.
that's where the issue comes in. I did find a meme where it says, leave me so I can cry over the deaths of fictional characters. For those kids who actually read it and have emotions, sometimes that scene can be a little bit rough. Those of you who don't have emotions or didn't read it, it might not have impacted
I
you.
mean, I read it, I just didn't.
It was
You don't have emotions. I'm not judging. Then we get to, so for the why does Johnny die? Having third-degree burns is not necessarily fatal. Having a broken spine and being paralyzed, also not fatal. Having both of them, not fatal. And yet Johnny dies from it. So if you've seen movies,
Sometimes you feel so fast.
Yeah.
Like
He had pneumonia.
not pneumonia, not a bad guess. Have you guys seen TV shows and movies when the doctor comes out and he's like, I don't know if he's gonna make it, but if he's a fighter, he'll pull through. It's a legit thing. Oftentimes, if you are on the edge of dying, if you mentally want to get better, you can sort of help your body heal by wanting to get better. It's that mind over matter thing. With Johnny, best case scenario, he gets out of this. Where does he go to live?
At a boy's home.
Not a boy's home.
Heavy.
his parents.
With his parents. What kind of relation does he have with his
Dad.
parents?
Yeah,
They yell at him and beat him up all the time. And normally he dealt with that by running away. Can he run away now?
No.
So now he's looking at, he's paralyzed, you can't run away, your parents yell at you and beat you on a regular basis, he has nothing to live for. Not only does he have nothing to live for, he's done good things. He's saved kids. Dally's proud of him. He's made a difference in the world. Johnny's like, why would I want to get better when I've done all the good things I can? So he legitimately just gives up on wanting to get better. And that's why he ends up dying.
How was pneumonia a good guess?
Well,
the smoke.
because it was better than other kids who I've had in my previous classes who would yell out things like, Dally killed him! And stuff like that. At least pneumonia would make sense because when you're in the hospital and stuff like that, you can get pneumonia.
I had pneumonia before.
You at least put thought into it, which puts back a lot of other kids.
Didn't.
I apologize. I'll never compliment you.
I just said he had pneumonia because I don't know.
How did Ponyboy get to the hospital?
Some random dude was like,
They ran in a
Yeah.
car.
How did he get to the hospital?
oh, that
That was just
I
And then-
thought it was like getting home.
Dally just dipped. I did have a kid earlier make the joke that Dally rage quit, which is why he runs out of the room.
It does say get home.
He put the controller.
Right, but that was not the question I asked. I said, how does he get to the hospital? Dally. Now, you can't get home via Dally, because what did Dally just do?
Run away.
Yeah, he just rage quit and ran away. So here's where, let's skip this and we'll come back to it. When Ponyboy leaves the hospital, as we get into chapter 10, this is where he now got kicked in the head, so he has a concussion, and he's bleeding, and he just watched his best friend die, so he just walks home in the middle of the street. And here's, when I read this book when I was a kid, I thought the story was going to take a different turn. Because all of a sudden, as he's walking down the street, a random guy pulls up and just goes, hey, little boy, would you like to get in my car for a ride home?
Yes.
And this is where my thought went. Not here. Oh, sorry. I get to do this first.
Ew.
Oh, wow.
This is where my thought went.
Stop!
So, I had the idea that there was a guy in a white van who was going to pick him up and offer him candy. But that's not what happens. It turns out the guy was actually nice to him. He was just actually gave him a ride home. Once he gets home, he then tells all of his brothers and his friends, Johnny's passed away. They get a phone call. Who calls them?
Dally.
Because, what did Dally just do?
Pointed a gun at someone.
He robbed the store. Now, what do we know about his gun?
It's not loaded.
It's not
Do
loaded.
his friends know that?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, yes, they
Because
do.
he told all of them also that it is not loaded. So then Dally calls them and says, hey, I just robbed a store. Meet me in the empty lot to help me get away. And they're like, we got you, boo. And they take off to go meet him. And so here's Dally Winston's final scene. He runs into the empty lot, that place they hang out all the time. Oh, what time of day is it?
Night.
So it's nighttime. So in this empty lot, he could run anywhere in the empty lot. But there is a specific spot he runs to.
Spotlight, the street light.
He runs in there and then runs directly under the spotlight to make sure he is seen. Then, what is he carrying with him?
His gun.
That is not loaded. And of course, he just robbed a store, so who's following him? And this is where the popos show up.
Wait, can I do a police sound effect?
Mr. Broviak, I saw you.
Oh, no, not with your phone. I thought with your mouth. It'll take too long.
Please.
Mr. Broviak,
Yes.
I saw you do the Broviak from the other one because I read it. And it's the same exact thing.
Really?
Mhm.
I've used this picture. They pull out their guns. He pretends to shoot at them. Their pretending is better than his pretending.
And they kill him.
Yeah. And then that's where Dally dies.
How would he do that?
That's where the question comes
My
up.
friend told me this.
Does Dally
Sailors
know
on
this is
it.
how it's going to end?
Yes.
Absolutely. So then the question comes up, well, if he knows he's going to die, why call your friends to come to the empty lot just to watch you die?
So they know he's dead.
So here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Dally is a boy, is a teenager who is not good with emotions. And he is feeling a lot of emotions right now. And he wants his friends to know why he died. And why is he dying?
Because he's so sad that Johnny died because he
Exactly.
was his goal.
And he wants his friends to know it's because of Johnny. But he wants everyone else, all the other greasers and all the other kids out there, to think he died the cool greaser way, robbing a store and getting shot by the police. He doesn't want his friends to think that. He wants his friends to know why he actually did it. That's why he calls them to come watch. This is as close to emotion as Dally can get. It's basically saying goodbye to your friends by having them watch you die with an unloaded gun. That's his way of saying goodbye. Is it messed up?
Yes.
Yeah, but Dally's messed up, so you would expect nothing less. As soon as Dally gets shot, oh, I forgot I did this one. So.
Stop! I hate that picture.
Well, yeah, there's two less.
Don't be a hater.
Once Dally gets shot, what does Ponyboy do?
Faint.
Passes out, hardcore. He watches it happen, and all of a sudden Ponyboy just goes, huh, and then passes out.
2 dead, that's a double kill.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, he's not dead. He just passes out. So with Ponyboy passing out, here's what happens with that in the following bit that comes up. How much time has passed from page 1 till now?
Not even a
A week.
Almost exactly a week. Just over. I think it's like just over 7 days. What you have to realize is what all has happened to Ponyboy in 7 days. So I'm going to do a quick recount from beginning of book to now. Starting with walking home from the movie theater and getting jumped by Socias, who hold a knife to his throat and he thinks he's going to die. He then gets saved by his friends. The next night he goes to a movie theater and he gets to flirt with really hot girls, and then he gets to walk really hot girls home, but then he gets stopped by their boyfriends and they threaten to kill him. He then goes home from there, gets slapped by his brother, and runs away from home. After running away from home, he goes to the park. At the park, he gets jumped by the Socias again. They drown him to the point where he is almost dead, wakes up from almost being dead to find out his best friend killed somebody, sees his first dead body, runs away from home, lives in a church after riding a train for the first time, eats nothing but bologna and cigarettes for almost 5 days straight, goes to Dairy Queen, High Point, gets to have a blizzard and some delicious food, goes back to the church, church is on fire, runs into church, gets bit by a kid, throws kids out windows, church collapses on him, he catches on fire, friend punches him in the spine, church collapses on friend. Goes to the hospital. At hospital, finds out that he's going to get separated from his brothers because he's going to get in trouble with the police. Goes to a rumble. At the rumble, gets kicked in the head and gets a concussion. From there, goes to the hospital. At the hospital, he watches one of his best friends die in front of him. Stay cold. Goes home with a random stranger who could kidnap him. Gets out, then goes to the open spot, and then watches another kid get shot right in front of him. All of that in 7 days. Any one of those events would make your Snapchat story. And yet all of that happens to him in 7 days.
That's a lot of Snapchat stories.
When you're young, your brain can't take that. His brain just shuts off and goes, no, and turns off. And that's why he passes out. And he's essentially passed out for, I think they say, like 3 or 4 days where he is asleep. He's not quite in a coma because he keeps talking, but he is passed out because your brain gets to the point where it goes, if you're asleep, nothing bad can happen to you anymore. And we need the bad stuff to stop. So basically, his brain prevents any more bad things from happening. While he's passed out, he's worried he never asked about Derry. What was his relationship like with Derry at the beginning of the book?
Yeah.
Not great.
Horrible. They fought. But then, Derry writes him a letter, and how do things change later on?
Could have sworn that was
Soda Pop wrote the letter. I apologize. Derry talked to him at the hospital that Soda Pop wrote the letter. And Derry and him get along a little bit better. So his worry is, did I ever say Derry's name while I was passed out? And Soda Pop tells me he did, but what's his worry if he doesn't say Derry's name?
that Derry thinks he doesn't like.
And then everything goes back. And he's worried about ruining his relationship with Derry. And that's why he keeps saying, did I ask for Derry? Did I ask for Derry? What gift did Johnny give to Ponyboy now that he's woken up?
When?
The Gone with the Wind book, and that becomes the gift that he gets. And we're going to find out there's a letter inside of there, but we won't get to that until chapter 12. Chapter 11, no more deaths, technically.
Not yet.
But this is when Randy shows up. And again, who's Randy?
The Soch, that's like technically.
Soch, who is friends with
Oh.
Bob. And when did we see Randy earlier?
Out before the rumble.
Before the rumble at the Tasty Freeze. Because what decision did Randy make?
I'm not fighting.
That he was not going to fight. Randy is trying to be a good person. And this is when he shows up and ends up talking to Ponyboy and apologizes and says, my friends were awful. We were horrible to you. We were trying to go out and hurt somebody that night. And we get to find out the backstory on Bob. We find out that Bob was a jerk, but not a horrible person. Who Bob was is, you guys know kids like Bob at our school. Bob had the family where he never got in trouble. And you know kids like that here. Kids who don't do homework. Kids who you would get in trouble for doing what they do. They skip classes, or they get detentions, or they're never doing their work, or they're staying out late at night. And you go, if I did that, my parents would kill me. And you think, well, this kid's life must be perfect. They can do whatever they want. That's Bob. Bob got to do whatever he wanted. If you don't have an adult telling you right from wrong and punishing you, you grow up not knowing the difference between right and wrong. Bob didn't know the difference. He wasn't a horrible person. He had a bad home life. And there are kids all over with bad home lives. So that's what Randy says. He goes, he wasn't bad. He was just screwed up. Same thing like Randy is. He's like, I'm also screwed up. Just like Ponyboy is. Then Randy and Ponyboy get into a fight. Because Randy says, you can't get into any trouble. You didn't do anything wrong, so it's not like you killed somebody. Ponyboy disagrees. Who does Ponyboy think he killed? Ponyboy's convinced he killed Bob. Here's the reason why Ponyboy thinks he killed Bob. Remember the whole brain shutting down thing? So, he's trying to heal and get better. His life is so screwed up, he's trying to get to a happy place. His happy place is imagining that he's a murderer, because he wants Johnny back alive. So if Johnny's alive, but Bob is still dead, well, if Johnny didn't kill Bob, who is the only other person there? Ponyboy himself. So if Johnny's not a murderer, Ponyboy has to be the murderer. And so Ponyboy is trying to feel like he's in a better place, and his better place is imagining he's a murderer. You have to imagine how screwed up you are if your happy place is imagining that you're a murderer. And that's where Ponyboy is. He's like, man, my life would be so much better if I was a murderer. That's not healthy whatsoever. So that's why he and Randy get into a fight. Then, Ponyboy has to go to court. Why does he think he's going to court? He says, I murdered Bob. Obviously, that's why I'm going to court. That's not why he's going to court. Did you catch why he has to go to court?
Because of his brothers and they got in trouble.
Nicely done. Because of that whole beginning of the book, when he said, we only get to stay together if we don't get in trouble. A murder charge and running from the police is getting in trouble. So here he's going to court to see if their family gets separated. But Ponyboy still thinks it's because of the murder. And that's why there's this real confusing scene in the courtroom where the judge keeps asking him, how's Derry doing as a brother? He's like, Derry's great, but I killed Bob. He's like, okay. He's like, how's Soda Pop? He's like, Soda Pop's awesome, but I killed Bob. And he keeps trying to confess to killing Bob, and the judge knows he didn't kill Bob. Everybody knows he didn't kill Bob. But that's where it gets confusing, because Ponyboy keeps saying, I killed Bob, even though he didn't.
Oh, that's why you have the shirt.
And that's where I had, and so that, nicely done, James.
Do I get a monkey treat?
Fine, you're right, I will give you a monkey treat for that one. I meant to say it out loud myself first, but you caught me. Nicely done, go you. The shirt I wore yesterday, I didn't want to give that part of the book away because it was coming up in the next part, but yeah, it's actually from this scene in the courtroom where he keeps saying, I killed Bob, because that's where he keeps trying to admit it over and over again. Then we get to, so Pony and the Socias and the Coke bottle. Here's what Pony's going through. It's one of the reasons why I like this book and why I try to get kids to read it is what Pony goes through is what I see a lot of my students go through. He has a screwed up home life. When you have a screwed up home life, it's hard to care about school. School does not have importance if you are not happy at home. Pony's not happy at home. But like you guys, he's a good person. And so he's trying to get that balance between I'm a good person, but my home life sucks. And so he's trying to do that best balance he can. And there's a scene with a Coke bottle where the Socias confront him, and he smashes a Coke bottle and threatens to kill them, which is not the Ponyboy of earlier. But we see the fact that he's sliding down this dark path. He's giving in to his anger and hatred and being unhappy. So then, this fight, we find out more about Sandy. Why did Sandy leave before?
Because you made bad choices. They both made bad choices.
They made bad choices, and what happened to Sandy?
She had to go away from that. Friendly.
Because of the friendliness, she got pregnant. Page 174, I'm going to read it to you real quick to see if you can figure out. We find out more about Sandy.
Oh.
She was cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, alright.
Yeah.
Bad.
It says, it's the letter that he wrote Sandy, Derry said.
Alright.
It just got returned unopened. So that's what had been bugging Soda all afternoon. And I hadn't even bothered to find out. And while I was thinking about it, I realized I'd never paid much attention to Soda's problems. Hey, when Sandy went to Florida, it wasn't Soda, Ponyboy. He told me he loved her. I guess she didn't love him like he thought she did because it wasn't him. He wanted to marry her anyway, but she just left. Meaning what?
She went to another guy.
Yeah. So Soda Pop knew it wasn't his baby, but he was still willing to be with her to try and make her happy. And she still rejected him. So that's what Soda Pop was going through. Then we get to Johnny's final letter to Ponyboy, where he says, stay gold, don't give up on life, don't become like Dally, who just hates everything. And we get to our final thing, which is where his English teacher tells him, you are going to fail my class unless you write this essay about something that's important to you. So you have to write an essay about things that are important to you in some way. And so this is where we get to the very end of the book and the last page where we find out what his essay is. I'm going to see if you can figure out what his essay is. I sat down and picked up my pen and thought for a minute, remembering a handsome dark boy with a reckless grin and a hot temper, a tough tow-headed boy with a cigarette in his mouth and a bitter grin on his hard face, remembering, and this time it didn't hurt, a quiet, defeated-looking 16-year-old whose hair needed cutting badly, who had black eyes with a frightened expression to them. 1 week had taken all three of them, and I decided I could tell people, beginning with my English teacher. I wondered for a long time how to start that essay, how to start writing about something that was important to me. And I finally began like this. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind, Paul Newman and a ride home. Because where have you heard that before?
Book.
So what is it he writes for his paper?
This book.
So when he has to write about the thing that's important to him, he writes about his friendship and about how it shapes you and who you become, and so that becomes the overall book. So that's why it
Big
loops
essay.
back. that's why I made such a big deal about Paul Newman at the very beginning, because I figured if I made a big deal about that name, when you read the name at the very end, it would help make that whole connection-y thing.
Oh my gosh.
There's The Outsiders for you. And I got done right on time. Right? I should be. Oh, I was a minute off.
58.
Yeah, I was trying
Well,
to
it's
be
a
close.
good thing that